Hello there everybody, and welcome to a more unusual video for the channel, considering what this channel is meant to be. Anthony joining you once again, and if you remember a while ago I was talking about potentially doing some Transformers TCG competitive analysis. However, that idea got shot down with the game getting cancelled, so really all I had left to do for the channel was gameplay, and while I do enjoy doing that, there are occasionally some things that I wanted to just talk about, and that's really what this video is going to be for. I'm just going to ramble on about whatever I saw in terms of gaming news in August 2020, and technically a couple of things from the end of July will be thrown in here, but that's beside the point. And if this goes well enough from both my end and the viewership end, I might do more of these, because I've actually noticed on the channel recently that some of my older analysis videos have been seeing an uptick in views for whatever reason. Not really like a huge uptick, but just an occasional view every once in a while, so I figured let's bring that back a little bit. I get to talk about whatever I feel like. You guys get to hear me ramble about whatever, and I stumble over my words and continue to keep up the idea that the channel has pretty much everything going wrong with it. It's a win-win for everybody. So I'm thinking about doing these about once a month, and it'll contain pretty much anything I talk about from a certain month, in this case, August. And just because I'm going to be recording various things at different times, I will mark for each segment when I recorded that, so that way you have a bit of context as to what I know at that time. So without further ado, let's get started with the ramblings. Okay, so we're going to start this party off with talking about a bunch of FFG stuff, starting off with some X-Wing stuff. And I will have timestamps in the description to all the different games I talk about, so if you want to jump to a specific game or want to see if a specific game is discussed, just jump there. So there were a couple of cards revealed for Wave 7, but I'm not going to talk about those here. I'll save that for another time, probably later in this video maybe, who knows. But we have 6 new expansions, starting off the TIE Brute. This is something I've definitely been looking forward to, because the Imperials haven't had anything new for 2nd edition. Technically they had the Reaper, but that was a 1st edition ship first. This is the first true 2nd edition Imperial Second edition only Imperial ship. I can speak. And definitely, it's interesting. So it's a medium ship. It's kind of like a cross between an RZ-2 A-Wing and a TIE SF in terms of its firing mechanics, where its primary weapon can only fire in either the front or the rear arc, and it's indicated by a turret indicator, and its secondary weapon has to treat where the turret indicator is as its firing arc, so front or rear, because of this weird double cannon thing it has. And one of its pilots we know of can actually deal out strain tokens pretty easily, which definitely is an interesting mechanic. And then we also have, or a different interesting ability, I should say. We also have this new configuration. There's 2 of them in this expansion. So one is this Maneuver Assist MGK 300. The other we don't know. But it definitely is a nice way to do the droid brain thing that this thing has. So good call on their part, and I'm not going to discuss this too much. Eventually, it'll probably get a preview article in September, and I'll discuss a little more about it then. But for now, let's move on. And the only reason I'm not discussing it too much is just because we don't know too much about it. So, moving on, the Resistance get a new pack, and this is something they mentioned they were doing. They were doing Squadron packs similar to what they did for the old Ace packs in 1st edition. And the first of these is Heralds of Hope, which comes with 2 repainted T-70s and a repainted RZ-2. We got new versions of Poe and Snap that instead of having abilities that work for themselves, they have abilities that help others. We have a new A-Wing pilot that's going to be a pretty interesting blocker, and a couple of new upgrades that definitely will be fun to mess around with. I personally am not too excited for this one because I really don't play Resistance. In fact, I don't really own one. I own one Resistance thing, and that's a T-70 for 1st edition, but I know Cole's probably excited for this, so all the props to him, and I'm definitely going to have to get him into buying Heralds of Hope so we can test that stuff around, because it does look like this stuff is going to be pretty interesting. So moving on, we have the ETA-2. I know Cole and Eric were extremely excited for this one, and we've been waiting for this one since Wave 4. Definitely interesting. It comes with a hyperspace ring, which is interesting, albeit I think it's going to be something related to Epic, considering, like, I mean, sure, it essentially gives you the ability of Resistance Han, but honestly, I feel like this is going to be something that can only show up in Epic. We'll see, though. New versions of Anakin and Obi-Wan that sync up directly with each other, or really any version of Anakin or Obi-Wan for each. A new Force power, new version of R2. So definitely an interesting thing. And also, I'm just going to mention this is kind of funny. This is Obi-Wan's red ETA-2, but on the artwork for Obi-Wan, they show his blue one, and then they have Anakin in the box, so like nothing is synced up, and I find that hilarious. Of the two Republic ships in this wave, though, the V-Wing is the one definitely I'm more excited for, just because Republic, I think I've mentioned this before, but they don't have a true interceptor. The Delta 7 kind of could fill that role, but it was kind of expensive. This is a cheap swarm interceptor. It actually looks pretty interesting. It's got a decent stat line. It's got the ability to bypass tie restrictions, like with this ion limiter override, which I have mixed feelings on. I'll talk more about that once we see a V-Wing preview, or maybe the Brute preview, because the Brute actually comes with one of these, I'm pretty sure. Tarkin's a pilot in this thing, which is interesting. Oddball's a pilot in this thing, so now that's, what, 4 different versions of Oddball now. So Anakin's on 4 ships, Oddball's on 4 ships. It's just hilarious how many things he's on. As what I'm most excited for out of this wave in general, Tri-Fighter. I've been asking for this for a long time, and I finally have the chance to get one. And me and Cole constantly joked about how when they brought this thing into the game, they'd have to introduce Speed 6 because this thing was so freaking fast. They're not doing that. They have this weird booster thing that essentially forces it to not fire unless it detaches the booster, which is an interesting mechanic, and it also auto-detaches after 3 turns, which is kind of funny. So definitely interesting. It's going to be able to allow you to just shoot this thing up the board and then come around the rear and then fire from behind, which if these things can take cannons and can take auto blaster, holy shit. Just wow. That would be interesting. So that's definitely fun. Jango Fett Slave 1, this is definitely the left field ship in my opinion. The Brute we could have seen coming. Heralds of Hope, you could also classify as left field, but that's not really new ships. That's just enhancing existing ships. Jango Fett Slave 1, though, it's a ship that already exists in the game, but it's for a new faction, so I'm considering it a new ship. We have Hondo. We're getting young Boba Fett. We're getting Jango Fett. Looks like it's just gonna be the standard old Slave 1 with some new tricks. So that's really all I can say for that. So going back here to the page. Let's see, what should we talk about next? Let's talk about Armada next. So they announced a couple of accessory packs, and we're getting an issue over here, whatever. So while this is loading, there are 2 things that are coming. First, this upgrade card collection, which it's similar to the upgrade pack they released for Legion a while back. So they give you a bunch of different cards at a new size that they're moving pretty much all the cards to. And I definitely like this. It allows newer players to get these high-level cards in order to build pretty much whatever squadrons they want with what limited ships they have. It allows experienced players to essentially have a choice of how big they want their cards to be, and I think all these cards are going to be errated and re-points costed, so they'll be up-to-date with the current FAQs, so that's definitely nice. And I think this thing was $25. That's not too bad, I think. Depends on how many cards are in the box. I'll put it on screen and let you know how many things are in there. Now, the other thing that was listed in here that I just don't understand is the dial pack, and it's not loading because my internet is just not cooperating with me right now. But the dial pack just includes 10 dials, 10 command, 7 speed, and some tokens. I personally don't get why you wouldn't want this, because every ship already comes with dials, unless they're moving dials out of the expansions. If that's the case, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, because they've always done it where they include all the components you need to fly the ship in the box, including tokens and stuff like that. So why would they move the dials out? If somebody can explain to me why they're doing this, please let me know. But personally, the upgrade pack I'm excited for. The dialed pack, I'm just scratching my head. So that is the 2 just kind of footnotes in my opinion, and my internet is deciding to be a complete jack. So while I figure this out, we will be right back. Oh wait, there it goes. Let's see here. Okay, so we did also now we're finally getting Clone Wars in Armada. So let's start with the Republic stuff, because personally I find that more exciting. So we're getting, for both Separatist and Republic, we're starting off with a Fleet Starter, which is $100, but more on that in a minute. And a squadron pack that costs $25. The old ones cost $20, so this makes sense. So, and also I should mention with the squadron packs, they are finally moving away from those clamshell packs that are near impossible to open. Thank God we're moving away from those. Because I just bought a couple of old Descent 2nd Edition Lieutenant packs recently, and I forgot how annoying it is to open these things, so thank God they're getting rid of them, so... Anyway, so the fleet starter for the Republic. So this thing comes with an Acclamator, 2 Charger Corvettes, or what are they? Consular class Corvettes. They're called Chargers in a couple of places. Also comes with 4 V-19 squadrons and all the components you need to play. So range ruler, maneuver tool, dice, obstacles, dials, tokens, all that good stuff. So this is basically a one-player core set, but unlike the original core set, these essentially contain much larger fleets for one faction, whereas the first core set contains splinter fleets for 2 factions. So it makes sense. And plus, if you think about the price point of everything, and this is where I'm going to talk about the price point. Originally, when I saw it, I was in sticker shock because like $100. Why would they put it at $100? But let's just think about this here. Acclamator's a medium ship. Those things generally run for about $40, give or take. So, because like the Mark II Assault Frigate's 40, the Victory's 40, the Interdictor I think is 40. So that makes sense. That's $40 right there. Then the 2 consular classes, I'm going to call them the Chargers just to keep my, or just so that way it's easier for me. The Chargers are small ships. Those would retail for about 20 each. So that's another $40 on. That's 80. Then we have the 4 squadrons, which is half a squadron pack. That's about $12.50 right there. And then all the extra components makes up for that void, because I know the maneuver tool is like $7. The dials, you get about, I think you're going to get like, what, 5 of them it looks like from this image. So that's half the dial pack. Yeah, the price point makes sense when you think about it like that. Do I like it? No. Does it make sense? Yes. So that's definitely interesting. Couple of upgrades here. Bail Organa. Looks like, oh, it's a commander. Oh, okay. When a friendly ship reveals a command, you may discard 1 token of each type from this card. For each token you discard, the ship gains an additional type. Now, it's 28 points, which standard for commanders. They tend to be pretty high costed. Now, this thing on the side, I'm not sure what that is. I haven't watched the Armada breakdown thing they did for Gen Con, but I might go watch it after I'm done recording this part, and I might interrupt actually here if I learn what that is. Okay, so I did go back and watch the Armada breakdown thing they did for Gen Con, and a couple things. So what this means over here is it starts with 5 of each of these tokens on it. I think it's each of them. I'm pretty confident it's each of them. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it starts with this many tokens on it, so you essentially get 5 uses out of this, and you can give navigation and repair tokens to other ships. Now, there are a couple more things we'll discuss, so I'll get back to that in a minute whenever the card comes up. But I'm guessing maybe this has something to do with the tokens that it starts with, or the way it gains tokens. I don't know. So I'd have to do a little more digging into that in order to figure it out. And then the Acclamator title, Implacable. I think this means that it's a card that's exhaustible, if I had to take a wild guess at that. So, and yes, I was correct. This is exhaustible, excuse me, and it means that it automatically refreshes like most cards that previously exhausted do. So that's how that one works. Because it says here, before a friendly ship or squadron at range or distance 1 to 2 suffers damage from an attack, you may exhaust this card and spend up to 2 shields from your front hull zone to reduce the total amount or total damage by that amount. Similar to what we saw on Gallant Haven for the Mark II Assault Frigate. So, except I think that one was just the first attack. No, wait, that's Paragon. That one I think was just a blanket reducing by 1 damage. This you can do it by 2, but you have to exhaust it, so it's once per turn. It seems interesting. 4 points, maybe not worth it. Who knows? It looks like Axe is going to come in the pack as the unique squadron, so 10 command dials. Okay, so actually they may be going away from including dials in the boxes, because why would there be 10 dials for what looks like a 2-command ship and 2 1-command ships, because that would only need 4. And we'll see what happens. So, moving on, Republic fighters. So the squadrons we're getting here are V-19s, like we just saw, Arc 170s, Delta 7s, and BTLB Wide Wings. Pretty standard suite. We don't know what else is in there, so let's just move on to talking about the Separatist stuff. So pulling that up here quickly. So same idea for the Separatists. They have a starter that costs 100, a squadron pack that costs 25, and same idea here with the price point. So you're getting a, what is this thing? The Munificent class frigate, even though this thing is nowhere near the size of a frigate and is much larger. Two, what are these things? Hard Cell class transports, which this was something I didn't see coming. I'm pretty sure these are like the fuel cell things that we saw, or those things that they shot rockets at in episode 2 when Anakin yelled aim for the fuel cells. And then 4 Vulture Droid squadrons just to round it out because Vulture Droids, duh, Separatists. Upgrades, we have T-Series Tactical Droid. When you spend only a engineering, navigation, or squadron command token to resolve a command, you may exhaust this card. If you do, you resolve that command as if you had spent a dial of the same type. Okay, so it just gives you some more power off your tokens. There's another arrow here. What does that do? And it turns out what this does is you can exhaust the card, but it does not automatically refresh itself like we saw with Implacable. And whatever's in the bar over here is what you have to spend or do in order to unexhaust it. Now, I'm not sure what this symbol means, but I'm pretty sure one of the cards they showed off on stream, had allowed you to spend command tokens or something like that to refresh it. I'm not sure the specifics, but yeah, that's how those 3 things work. So now back to the regular stuff. Again, I'll insert here if I figure out what that is, along with this bar as well. So 4 points, interesting. And then also we have a title for the Munificent class, the Tide of Progress. Is that 12? Tide of Progress 12. Before you're dealt a face-up damage card with the ship trait, you may exhaust this card to discard that damage card without resolving its effects. Once again, we have the exhaustion thing, just a one-time exhaustion. I'm not sure what this means. Again, you probably know if it's if I mention it or not. We'll see what happens, but 2 points seems decent. I really don't understand Armada as much as I do like X-Wing or Transformers, but hey, it's fun. And then for Separatist squadrons, we have the Vulture Droid, the Hyena, the Belbalab, and the Tri-Fighter. Makes sense why they did those 4. So that's all the Star Wars. Actually, no, there is one more Star Wars thing I'm going to talk about. Legion. Now, I've mentioned this before. I don't play Legion, but I'm looking to get into it, and I have the Tabletop Simulator mod for it, so I might start messing around with that on the channel for serious competition. But 4 new expansions. We have Anakin as a Commander expansion, and Cole has been talking about for a while now. If they released Anakin into the game, he would get into Legion. We'll see if he actually holds up to that. We'll see. It's his decision, and his decision alone. So we're getting Anakin in the game. That's awesome. The Republic Personnel expansion, or Republic Separatists, I should say, similar to the Imperial and Rebel ones we got a while back. So Commander, it looks like a Comm Specialist, what is this? An Engineer, and a Medic. So honestly, I would not be surprised with the Medic model if everybody paints theirs like Kicks, because like what else are you going to paint it as? Just a generic clone Medic? That's not fun. So I know for sure if I get into Legion, I'm painting mine as Kicks, no question about it. Or at least one of them is Kicks. So moving over to the Separatist side, we have Maul as an operative with his probe droids. So that's cool. We're getting Maul in the game, so that's always fun. And then for the Separatist Personnel expansion, we're getting one of these droids, PK Series Worker Droids. I remember these things from LEGO Star Wars. That EV droid, that's a medical droid, so you have a medic. Tactical droid model, that's actually kind of cool, and I may just buy one of these before I even get into Legion just for this thing, because it's actually looking kind of cool. And then a probe droid, or I think that's a probe droid. Oh, Viper Recon droid. Yeah, one of those things. So that's fun just to have as essentially the comms technician model. So those look cool. Again, I don't understand Legion too much because I don't play it, but looks fun. Albeit I'm still holding out hope that they will eventually release a Hailfire droid and an AT-AP, because if they did that, similar to what Cole said with Anakin, I would instantly jump into Legion. So really the only other thing I wanted to talk about, actually there's 2 things. So Keyforge, Dark Tidings. This is interesting to say the least. Now, I haven't played Keyforge on the channel yet. I have plans to bring it on at some point. I have to talk with John though. And this is not loading. Okay, while I wait for this to load, we'll be right back. Okay, so my internet finally decided to cooperate again, and Keyforge is getting a 5th set sometime in November, it looks like. Dark Tidings. So, looking at some of the cards here, I'm again, like I mentioned, I'm planning on playing Keyforge. I'm actually recording this slightly after I recorded that last little bit before the internet decided to give out. So looking at some of the cards here, let's see. Abyssal Zealot for that new house that they're introducing. I don't remember what it's called. It's replacing Dis in this set. House Unfathomable. Okay, so that's that. So this is an Unfathomable. I cannot pronounce that. After you raise the tide, capture 2 Ember. After your opponent raises the tide, move 2 from Abyssal Zealot to the common supply. Nice way to steal Ember. We'll get to the tide in a minute. Emberfin Shark. Something at the start of your turn. Each player something Ember. New Saurian. Something. It's a ship. Action, exhaust up to 5 friendly Saurian creatures. For each creature exhausted this way, deal 1 damage to each enemy creature. Okay, so some more direct damage shenanigans for Saurian. I've seen a few of those out of Worlds Collide. I really haven't touched Mass Mutation too much, but definitely Saurian seems to have a lot of different tricks up their sleeve, and they do seem to have a decent amount of direct damage stuff. Star Alliance, Rocketeer Triska? I think that's how you pronounce it. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, let me know. This is one of those evil twin cards that we'll talk about more later. Something about while the tide is high. Oh, while the tide is high, this enters play ready. Ooh, that's cool. Sea Urchin, something with poison. Bulwark. Oh. Ha, ha, ha. Assault 2, don't know the effect. Armadrone Philogos, it's an evil twin. Steal 2 Ember. So, the tide here. So, this is interesting. So the tide card comes in every deck, and it starts the game out of play, but as soon as you raise the tide, you put the high tide card facing towards you, the low tide card towards your opponent. While you have the low tide, you can gain 3 chains to raise the tide, so it's interesting to say the least. So looking at some of these cards, Elusive, after an enemy creature reaps, it does not ready. Ooh, oh, that's good. Always fun to annoy your opponent when it comes to reaping. The Chosen One, instead of readying creatures, your opponent deals 1 damage to the Chosen One for each exhausted creature they control. Okay, so those two seem to pair up pretty well. Yeah, so that's definitely kind of fun. Sleep with the Fishes. Destroy each exhausted creature. Okay, there's a combo again. Hookmaster, another Unfathomable card. If the tide is high, your opponent loses 2 Ember. Okay, that's interesting. Seabringer Kakoa, I think that's how you pronounce it. You can destroy it and raise the tide for free, it looks like. Couple more things that interact with it. Tide Warp at the start of your turn. If the tide is high, your opponent raises the tide. Otherwise, you raise the tide. Oh, so it's just a free thing, and you get an Ember for playing it. Ooh, Logos is going to love that, if they have any interesting effects. Sea Urchin, oh, there's that card we were talking about. High Tide, if it's a high tide when it plays, you capture an Ember. Oh, it's a tide effect. So when you play it while the tide's in play, capture an Ember. If the tide is high, you steal it instead. That's fun. That's the card we just looked at. Marshal Ewer. When you play or fight, raise the tide for free. Okay, so the standard effect is to gain 3 chains, but it looks like there's going to be a bunch of cards that you can mess around with to do that. Old Patty, Untamed. Yep, that seemed like an Untamed thing. A Tide Reap effect. Discard the bottom card of your deck or the bottom 3 if the tide is high. Play each creature discarded this way. Ooh, that's fun. Especially considering if you've never played Keyforge before and have played stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon, there is no decking out in this game. Once you run out of cards, you just reshuffle, similar to how Transformers worked. So, Lieutenant Valmart, another Star Alliance card. If the tide is high, your opponent's keys cost +3. Ooh, that's interesting. Sea Urchin, we talked about it. Undagnathus. So that is another Saurian creature. While the tide is low, Undagnathus, that's going to be a mouthful. Deals no damage while fighting. Interesting way to do the limited damage thing that we've seen on these high-powered creatures. Evil Twins, here we go. This is interesting. So, it says this. Evil Twin decks are a brand new type of deck appearing in Dark Tidings, and they're quite unlike anything you've ever seen before. For example, you may open a deck that entitled speakers Domita Evil. Oh, okay. I cannot read. That's entitled Speaker Domita's Evil Twin. This is an exact copy of Speaker Domita, a real deck that has been printed and can be found by another player out in the world. The crucial difference is that in an Evil Twin deck, many of your creatures look different. So now there's still one copy of each deck, but now you have basically a mirror version of somebody else's deck. And I wonder what the odds are that you pulled the same deck, essentially the same deck, both the regular and the Evil Twin version. So, Undagnathus, while the tide is low, double all damage to Undagnathus. Okay, so that, it doesn't have the no damage restriction, but if your tide is low, then you gotta be careful about that. So if the original deck here, many creatures have Evil Twin variants. If you find an Evil Twin, every creature with an Evil Twin variant appears in that form. It features new artwork, design, and abilities, making them a significant departure. For example, if the original deck had Undagnathus and Larry of the Lake, while the tide is high, each friendly creature gets +2 armor. The Lake giveth, I guess what the Evil Twin deck or counterpart says. And then that's the Undagnathus Evil Twin. And this, I take it away. While the tide is high, gets +5 armor. Holy sh**, that's good. And that's Sanctum. Oh, that's Sanctum. I thought it was Logos for a moment. Unfortunate, but this definitely looks like fun. So I really need to get caught up on Mass Mutation, but Dark Tidings definitely looks fun. So one last thing to talk about for FFG. There's also an Infernal Squadron preview. I'm not going to touch on that because that would really require me to talk a lot about like Legion, like mechanics, and I don't understand that. I was really looking at this from a fanboy perspective. But Prophecy of Kings for Twilight Imperium. Now, I do want to bring Twilight Imperium on at some point, and I think I mentioned this in, I think it was episode 7 of Serious Competition. I make a passing reference to Twilight Imperium, and I mentioned that at some point I might do a little Agents of Chaos mini-series, where on Mondays you get a part of a Twilight Imperium gameplay, because if you don't know this game, and I've never played it, but I've heard plenty of stuff online, this game takes forever. So, and it's get even crazier. So, looking at this, so let's see what the content. 7 new factions, 40 new system and hyperlane tiles, 2 new colors of pieces. So now you can play 8 players. If your games went 10 hours before, hopefully you can handle 15. And that does sound like fun, though. Like, actually playing a 15-hour space opera sounds awesome. So, mechs are also in here. Leader cards, exploration. Yeah, so there's a lot of content. It's $100, but it honestly looks worth it in my opinion. It's only $250 for everything, which if you've played any game that requires you to constantly buy stuff, honestly, that's not that bad. So looking at some of the stuff we see here, the Mahakt Gene Sorcerers, so they have the Edict ability. When you win a combat, place a command token from your opponent's reinforcements in your fleet pool if it does not already have that player's token. Other players' tokens cannot be in your fleet pool and cannot be redistributed, other players' tokens in your fleet pool increase your fleet limit but cannot be redistributed. So you're essentially just robbing people of their ships in theory. So that's kind of funny. While another player's command token is in your fleet pool, you can use the ability of that player's commander if it's unlocked. We'll talk about commanders in a bit. During set, purge your alliance promissory note. Other players cannot give you their alliance promissory note. So this is kind of like how Tyranids acted in this old living card game that FFG used to produce, where they couldn't ally with anybody. So that's kind of fun that they're bringing that idea back. So they're lone wolves in every sense of the word. They replaced their infantry with Crimson Legionnaires. After this unit is destroyed, gain a commodity or convert a commodity to a trade good. Okay, so these guys have a decent economy. Now, from what I understand, Hakan is generally the faction that has control over trade, and if you're playing with somebody who plays Hakan, you don't want to piss them off, especially if you're playing something like Arborek, who kind of relies on producing stuff, so is going to be spending a lot of resources and may need a lot of trade goods. So having that ability to essentially use your guys as suicide grunts in order to farm up those extra commodities, that's kind of fun. Their flagship, Arvicon Rex. During combat against an opponent whose command token is not in your fleet pool, applies, let's say, -2 or +2? I'd assume it's -2 because I think the lore behind these guys is they steal people's DNA. So it would make sense if they don't know what that enemy is like, they wouldn't be able to fight it against it as effectively. So overall, seems pretty fun. As soon as it gets into Tabletop Simulator, I'll try it. Or if I get a physical copy before then, we'll see what happens. Another faction, the Argent Flight. They have a unique destroyer. We'll get to that in a moment. You always vote first during the agenda phase. When you cast at least one vote, cast an additional vote for each other player in the game, including you. Oh, each player in the game, including you. Other wouldn't be included. So that's potentially an addition of, anywhere from an additional 3 to 8 votes. So that could be huge in terms of swinging the game in terms of the agenda phase. When one or more of your units uses anti-fighter barrage, for each hit produced in excess of your opponent's fighters, choose one of your opponent's ships that has sustained damage and it becomes damaged. Ooh, so it's a nice way to work around sustained damage on your opponent's dreadnoughts and flagships. That's fun. Speaking of their destroyers, looks like they have a combat value of 8. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure standard destroyers have a combat value of 9. But there's basically Strike-Wing Alpha destroyers. They're just, if I'm not mistaken on that point, they're just destroyers with 1 better combat value. Their anti-fighter barrage is still the same. I'm not sure about the upgrade, though. As for their flagship, Quetzalcoatl, I think that's how you pronounce it. Other players cannot use space cannon against your ships in the system. Okay, so that's a nice way to keep your fleet alive as you're moving in. So that's fun. Agents have changed. So we have the commander, the characters. So you start the game unlocked with an agent. You have to unlock a commander, and then you also get a once per game hero effect. So if we're looking at the Federation of Soul here, at the start of a ground combat, you may exhaust this card and choose a ground force in the system. And when it refers to ground forces, it means infantry or mechs. Since mechs are a thing in this expansion, it's not like 3rd edition where it was just all infantry were just referred to as ground forces because there were no mechs in that edition. But that ground force rolls an additional die during combat. Okay, so it just allows you to get some extra firepower on the field. The commander, at the start of a ground combat on a planet you control, you may place an infantry. Oh, as if they needed more ways to drop infantry down. And then the hero, you have to unlock. So what does that do? It allows you to use this, the Helio Command Array. Action, remove each of your command tokens from the board and return them to your reinforcements. Okay, so it's essentially an upgraded version of what Warfare does, so that's definitely interesting. We also have a couple more of these here. Karth of Golden Sand. So this is a Hakan agent. So during the action phase, you may exhaust this card to gain 2 commodities or replenish another player's commodities, as if they needed even more control over commodities, because why not? Ta Zern, this is a Jolnar, it looks like a Jolnar commander? I think that's what it is. After you roll dice for a unit ability, you may reroll any of those dice. Not sure where that applies. I think that might be like anti-fighter barrage, space cannon, stuff like that, actually, now that I think about it. So that's kind of fun. Makes their destroyers a little more potent. Adjudicator Bal, this is a Mulat card. Have 3 scored objectives as an unlock condition. And it looks like that's a standard thing. Nova Seed, Gravitational Collapse. After you move a War Sun into a non-home system other than Metacall Rex. Okay, here we go with their War Suns again, because they have to have their Death Stars. You may destroy all other players' units in that system and replace that system with the Mulat Supernova tile. If you do, purge this card in each planet card that corresponds to that replaced system tile. Okay, this basically turns a War Sun into a Death Star once per game. Like, actually, like, the War Sun is kind of like a Death Star in the fact that it could just blow everything up around it. But now it can actually, like, go full Death Star and just nuke a planet. That is both terrifying and awesome. Okay, so we have some mechs here. And I should mention I'm not going to talk about anything that was in the stream they did, because I don't feel like digging into that, and it just imposes more editing on myself, and if I want to get this out on September 1st, I kind of need to limit my editing there. So, let's see here. So a few different mechs. Each faction has a unique mech. The Icarus Drive is the Kraus mech, I think that's how you pronounce it, Kraus? After a player activates a system, you may remove this unit from the game board to place or move a Crest Wormhole token. Okay, so more movement options. The Nalu mech is the iconic class. During combat, rolls against an opponent who has at least one relic fragment. Apply +2 to the result of this combat rolls. Relic fragments, I don't know what those are. Looks like we have the Arboric one down here because Production 2 gives it away. Also gives Planetary Shield. Talks about replacing reinforcements or something. I don't know. The Mahawk mech is the Star Lancer. After a player whose command token is in your fleet pool activates in the system, you may spend their token to end their turn. Ooh, so you can just shut somebody down instantly. Ouch. And then we saw the Icarus drive already. As you venture into the galaxy, or as you venture into the unknown depths of the galaxy, you'll find 45 brand new planets. Oh, there's a 4 resource 4 influence planet. Ooh, that's pretty good. Another 3. It looks like another 3. Oh, that's a homeworld. That's the homeworld of the Argent Flight. Oh, okay. I was about to say, if that wasn't a homeworld, I would have been amazed. Wormholes are now touching asteroid belts. More supernovas. Oh, Lord. So, for the first time in Prophecy of Kings, you'll have the experience of setting foot on a new world for the first time. 4 exploration decks are included in this expansion for cultural, hazardous, industrial, as well as a frontier exploration deck for factions who have researched the necessary tech to explore the voids of space. Interesting. If you're the first player to take control of a planet, you have the chance to explore that planet, drawing a card from the appropriate deck. You may find a paradise world. The attached planet's influence value increases by 2. Okay, that's fun for agenda shenanigans. Volatile fuel source. If you have at least 1 mech on this planet, or if you remove 1 infantry from this planet, gain a command token. Okay, that's interesting. Just a nice way to get some command tokens. Perhaps most powerful of all, you may find a fragment of a relic. Okay, so this is kind of like the relic stuff. Relic fragment. So if we look at the okay, so if they're holding a relic fragment exploration card, then they get the mech ability. Okay, so purge 3 of your industrial relic fragments to gain 1 relic, and I think purging, similar to Keyforge, just removes it from the game completely. You can't get it back. There might be some effects that bring it back, but who knows. Purge 3 of these to gain a relic. When you would spend a token from your strategy pool, you may exhaust this card to spend a token from your reinforcements instead. Ooh! Okay, that's interesting. It allows you to kind of keep a buffer on that, so... And I don't think these count as relic fragments, the relics themselves, so good luck with that with your Nalu next, so... Yeah, overall, this contains a lot of stuff, and it is looking very interesting. So that's really everything I wanted to talk about for FFG, and I'm not too sure if there's anything else that is in this video. If there is, let's go ahead and skip to that now. Okay, so next, I know I've been talking constantly about, oh, Transformers is dead, oh, it's gone. It's dead to the Wizards of the Coast, but not to the fan base, because a couple hours after I'm before I'm recording this, excuse me, Blues on Attack, one of the more up there Transformers TCG channels, put out this video, and basically what I'm getting off this is they're making their own cards. Now, I'm not going to show the entire video because you should go watch it yourself, and I'm not going to speculate on what exactly the specifics are of what they're planning, because frankly, I have no clue. But there are a couple of cards in here that we know stuff about, so I will talk about them here, and I'll leave a link in probably either the description or the pinned comment to the video so you can go watch it for yourself. By the time this comes out, it's going to be out for a while, but in case you haven't seen it or want to rewatch it again, you can. So, we have 2 cards here, a battle card and a character. So, first up is Stasis Field. Now, let's see, we've got a secret action here. I think that's the standard blue icon, if I'm not mistaken. Let me take actually a quick look here. So secret action, we're getting some more secret actions. That's always a good thing. And I should also mention, I am going to be talking about this in a competitive sense. So even though there's not going to be like any competitive events, but that's kind of how my head is wired when it comes to this stuff. So I'm just pulling up a random blue icon card here. Okay, so that is just the standard blue icon, nothing fancy. And then the effect here, when one of your characters defends against an enemy in bot or body mode, the attacking player flips that attacker to alt mode. Okay, so couple of things here. Let's start by talking about the effect. First, this is interesting because there are some characters, like I think all the cassettes that Major Soundwave could use, like when you flip them into alt mode, they get 0 attack, so that's always something. But if they have a specific effect that requires them to be in bot mode and get an attack boost, this just allows you to have a direct counter to that and shut that down. So, albeit another interesting thing here is that it specifically differentiates between bot and body mode. And this is a question that I've had for a while now about whether all body modes are considered bot modes, but not all bot modes are body modes, or if they are two separate entities. And there's some ambiguity from my perspective, but if anybody could clear that up, please let me know. But Stasis Field, I'm liking the idea. It's just a matter of how many cards are we going to have that's going to be able to counter, because again, like I mentioned, like I think let's see, what was it, Conversion Expertise is a card that could counter all the mini cassettes that Major Soundwave and then the regular Soundwave and Blaster can use. Let's see, what else is there? Mirage you could probably flip in order to prevent him from double tapping. Smokescreen you could probably flip to prevent from getting the attack boost or something. There's probably a few more fringe plays, so this definitely isn't like a specific or like a dedicated counter to certain things, but it definitely is not like one of the best battle cards ever. It's still a good card, don't get me wrong, and I will be messing around with it once we figure out how we're even going to get these things in the first place, because they haven't talked about that yet. But for now, I'm liking this card, and it's good to see that they're experimenting with some things that maybe Wizards wasn't necessarily thinking. So, and also the artwork, like I know like Wizards of the Coast pulled the artwork from certain places, but it's just good to see some coherency with the artwork in these fan cards. So, anyways, the other one we have is a new character, Cyclonus, if this thing will load. Okay, so now we have a character in Cyclonus, and I'm sorry for the fact that the bars are in the way. I can't seem to get them to go away. I'm not sure why. But anyways, looking at stuff, we have a 5.13.2 in bot mode, a 4.13.2 in alt mode. This is definitely, I think, above the average in terms of the stat line. I'll put something up in post, depending on what I look up. Or I have actually the mathematical averages for each cost listed, so I'll put up what the average is on screen, and you'll be able to make your own analysis from there. For keywords, we have range in both modes, so you got the usual sweet marksmanship, armed hovercraft, stuff like that. Plane and a spaceship in alt mode, so that definitely opens up some interesting combos for certain cards. Looking at the abilities in bot mode, if one of your leaders that has 10 or more stars would take damage, you may have this take damage instead. That makes sense. Cyclonus was always like the second in command of Galvatron, so it would make sense that he has an ability to redirect damage from leaders. Albeit it's interesting that it doesn't specifically mention Decepticon leaders, so it's 8 stars, so maybe you pair it with Galaxy Prime as a way to divert damage off of it. I don't know. It's just a thought. Alt mode. When you flip to this mode, you may scrap a white icon card from your hand. If you do, move 2 damage from this to an enemy. Okay, so white icons, again, are something that everybody's playing in their deck for the most part. So just, if you get a white icon card in your hand you don't want in your hand, just chuck it, move some damage. It's pretty good. And considering the fact that this thing is going to be taking extra damage due to its bot mode ability, it's a pretty interesting card, I will admit. And for 8 stars, it's actually a fairly decent value, so that's why, and that's a good cost, so that way, again, you could pair it with Galaxy Prime or something like that. And then looking at some stuff at the bottom here, you got the design credits, you got the rarity. Oh, there's 38 of these things. Oh, geez, they've been busy. And then looks like, oh, Wave 1, if they're doing multiples of these, I am going to flip, and that is going to be absolutely amazing. While we're at it, let's take a look how many battle cards are there going to be. Okay, does it show? No, it does not. It does not show how many battle cards there are going to be, but definitely interesting. There's some other stuff in the video I won't talk about because, again, you should go watch this for yourself if you haven't already seen it, or if you just want to rewatch it, or you forgot what was in here, but definitely, whenever this comes out, support it. Let's show the internet how amazing this game is. Let's show WotC how amazing this game is and how much we still love it. And yeah, let's just keep this hype train rolling. So yeah, little mini section here for you. On to the next thing. Okay, and we have some Champions news as well. So the Ant-Man pack officially got announced. We knew this was coming because I don't remember where it was, but somebody mentioned that the next 4 packs are Ant-Man, Wasp, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, as well as that Guardians of the Galaxy expansion we're going to be getting at some point. But we now have the official announcement for the Ant-Man pack, and I'm just going to say this. If you have any of those combiner top loaders that were being sold on Etsy for Transformers, you might want to pull those out if you've also played Champions, because they are going to come in handy, and I'll explain why in a minute. So, we have a little overlay here of some of the cards. So we have, let's just take a look here. We have Ant-Man, his one of his hero forms, more on that later. We have an upgrade that we'll talk about later. This event, Giant Stomp, play only if you are in Giant form. Deal 1 damage to each minion, deal 8 damage to an enemy, so that's definitely going to be fun against Ultron, because drones, duh. We have a couple more cards back here that look like they're just generics. Moment of Triumph, an aggression card, 0-cost event. After you attack and probably destroy an enemy, heal 1 point of damage from your hero for each point of excess damage. I think that's what it says. I'm not 100% sure. We'll just have to wait and see. And then Moxie is a hero response that involves, or it's a 0-cost response, excuse me. That it's an event that involves something about your hero and +1 defense. I don't know. So, anyways, so we have this little GIF here showing that there are 3 modes for Ant-Man, and this is why I was talking about the combiner top loader being a thing, because if I had to take a wild guess, this thing, when folded out, is actually the same size as a Transformers character card. So if you have any of those combiner top loaders I was talking about, you might want to pull them out. So, looking at the forms, can I pause this in any way? Oh wait, they're down here, duh. Okay, so Alter Ego mode, 3 recovery, hand size to 6, 12 hit points for the basic stat line. That's pretty decent. Time to unwind after you change this form, heal damage, and you're gonna notice he heavily relies on flipping. So that's definitely something that, again, being a Transformers player, I'm kind of used to. And then we have the 2 versions of Ant-Man. We have the Tiny version, which when you change to Tiny Hero mode, you remove a threat from a scheme. You have a 2 thwart, 1 attack, 2 defense stat line, so he's about defense and thwarting, especially with the ability. And then you have the Giant Man form, which is 1 thwart, 3 attack, 3 defense. So a little actually better on defense in this mode, I just realized. But then you have better attacks, so this is really just meant as a beat stick, to use Yu-Gi-Oh terms in Champions. But when you flip to this mode, you deal a damage to an enemy. So, oh, and they even added the "Oh yeah, Tiny Dude is big now" quote. Oh my god, yes. Albeit there's only a hand size of 4 in this mode. Meanwhile, what's the hand size in? Okay, hand size of 5. Okay, so that seems pretty standard. So, anyways, we have a couple more cards here. We have Resize, which allows you to change to your other hero form. So if you're in Tiny mode, you go to Big mode. If you're in Big mode, you go into Tiny mode, and you draw a card. And yeah, so that's at least something that helps you do that flipping, the flipping shenanigans that he's gonna want to do. A couple more cards here. Ant-Man's helmet, which is a 3-cost upgrade. How much was resizing? Oh, that's a free. Okay, that's free. So, Ant-Man's helmet, after you change to Giant form, you can heal 2 damage, and after you change to Tiny form, draw a card, just to add extra effects onto that, as if you needed any more proof that this deck, or this hero, was about flipping. And then Wrist Gauntlet's a 1-cost upgrade, where if you're in Giant mode, you can exhaust the Wrist Gauntlet and spend 2 fist resources to stun an enemy, and if you're in Tiny form, you spend 2 bolts to confuse an enemy. So, interesting, just as a way, if you need to get a condition out quickly and you have the resources in hand, you have this on hand basically to use. Pim Particles, it's a resource, offers a wild, which I think is kind of typical for hero specific resources. I'm not too sure. But after you spend this card, you can heal 2 damage if you're in Giant form, or draw a card if you're in Tiny mode. So just kind of backing up what the helmet offers. We already talked about the helmet and the Wrist Gauntlets, and some allies now. So we have Hank Pym as a 0-cost ally. And you can play him for free, but he's just going to immediately die since he has 0. So you still have to pay resources for him, but you place a counter on him to a maximum of 4 for each overpayment that you made, or resource that you overpaid. And he gets +1 hit point for each counter on him. So if you need to drop him in a pinch, you can spend 1 resource. If you have the resources, you can drop him down to be a bit beefier. 2 thwart, 2 attack, still 1 consequential damage on each. I cannot speak. Oh, it was right here. Let's see, what else do we have? Giant Man, I'm not sure who this guy is, but he has +2 attack while he has 3 or more remaining hit points, so as soon as he drops to 2, he becomes a bit weaker, which his normal stat line is 2/2, but again, you have that +2 attack, so we have another beat stick, to use Yu-Gi-Oh terms, but he is a 5 cost, so good luck with that. Also, these are leadership cards, I should mention, so that's good to know that the starter deck for Ant-Man is going to be leadership. We also have Stinger. You can only play if your identity has the Avenger trait, 2 health, 1 attack, 1 thwart, but she does not count against your ally limit, which just having an extra 1 cost that you can drop down just for a quick thwart or a quick extra damage wherever you need it is always handy, so I'm liking that card. And the nice thing is it's not specific to Ant-Man, so there's that. Anyways, Reinforced Suit, there's this upgrade, attached to an ally, max 1 per ally, they get +2 hit points. Could be an interesting way to keep Hank Pym alive a little longer, or make sure Giant Man stays above that threshold to get the +2 attack, so that's fun. There's also Team Building Exercise, a generic support. It's a basic card, so you can use it whenever you want. Exhaust Team Building Exercise when you're in hero mode. Play a card from your hand that shares a trait with your hero, reducing its cost by 1. Okay, so what's the word I'm looking for here? God, I cannot think of the word. Entices? Is that the word I'm looking for here? Hold on. Encourages, that's the word. Oh my God, wow, how did I forget that? Anyways, it encourages you to build, put allies in that match your, hero's traits. So there's that. So my guess, I'm not sure how many quantities of each of the cards are in the deck. So we know number 1 is, obviously the character card. Number 6 is resize. I am not sure how many, does it say anywhere on the card how many copies are included in the deck? I'm not sure, but there's helmet is probably only 1. Yeah, that's probably only 1. Pym Particles is probably going to be at 2 if I had to take a wild guess. Wrist Gauntlets, that's at maybe 1, considering it's 15 out of 15. We'll have to see what all the cards are, because it looks like there's going to be more, considering Giant Stomp is right here, and it's not shown in the article, so we'll just have to wait and see, but it's looking interesting, to say the least. Again, as somebody who played Transformers, the flipping mechanics here definitely are appealing to me, so that's probably why I'm liking this so much. So, anyways, on to the next thing. And would you look at that, we're back to X-Wing. So we have the, or is that the Z-Class? Z-Class? I don't know. I'm probably going to switch between the two or subconsciously, so forgive me for that. But we have this thing's preview article up, so we'll see if we get any others soon. I'm not sure if they'll be in September or not, but if, depending on the length of the video, that might already answer the question. But we have the preview for this. I haven't read into it yet. We know a few cards in the expansion because some are reprints, some have been revealed previously, but let's see what we have. Okay, so looking at the dial here, I'm not sure if I talked about this in the video I made on this back in January, or just the first half of Wave 7 in general. 0 stop maneuver, pretty typical for a shuttle. 1 banks and straight, all blue. 2 banks and straight blue with 2 turns that are white. 3 straight and banks are white. 3 turns are red, 4 straight is white. Pretty standard shuttle dial, and it actually has a fairly decent suite of blue maneuvers, I think. Actually, now that I think about it, that is a bit average for these shuttle-style ships that are designed to carry multiple crew, but it's still actually a decent dial. Of course, the lack of K-turns hurts, but it's a shuttle, not a dogfighter. What do you expect? So, anyways, so Commander Malaris, so this is a dual card. I wasn't expecting that. We saw her card in the initial announcement, but we didn't know what it did. So, first order only crew, equipped face up, good English, equipped face up. While a friendly non-limited ship at range 0 to 1 performs a primary attack, that ship may reroll 1 blank result. If it does and the attack does not hit, you must flip the card. Okay, so you have some free rerolls there. And again, if depending on the cost of this, throwing it on a Z class and having a swarm of just regular TIE FOs could be a decent option. And once she flips, she becomes perfected. While you perform an attack, if the defender is in your bullseye arc, you must convert all focuses to hits and gain a stress token. Okay, so that's interesting. Then, if you have 2 or more stress tokens, suffer a damage. Ooh, okay, that is definitely risky. Considering the dial, maybe it's not necessarily the best idea. It definitely would be worse on an Upsilon, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Because I think the only 2 ships that can take crew for First Order are the Z-Class and the Upsilon. If we get the TIE Echelon at some point, maybe this would be slightly better on it. Because the TIE Echelon, I think, is a bit more maneuverable, relatively speaking. But it should be interesting, to say the least. So, I mean, on the Xi, relatively speaking, on the Xi class and the Upsilon, not necessarily the best thing because they don't have many ways to remove stress tokens, but if they release a TIE Echelon, maybe that'll work. We'll see what happens. So Commander Pyro, this was one of the cards that was revealed in a live stream. First Order only crew. After placing forces, choose an enemy ship. It gains 2 stress tokens. While you defend, if the attacker is stressed, you may reroll a defense die. Okay, just a way to get stress tokens on early, force their hand into certain maneuvers. So it's interesting, and I'm not sure if there are any other First Order ships or First Order pilots or upgrades that specifically, or any upgrades in general that specifically interact with opponents having stress. If I think of one while editing, I'll put it up on screen now. Or if you can think of one, drop it in the comments, and let's just try to figure this out. But it does seem like a decent enough effect if you can start pushing out stress tokens. So we'll see what happens. Now, Agent Terex we've seen before. You equip and face up, you get 3 calculate tokens. You can choose a friendly ship range 0 to 3, remove a calculate token, give it to that ship. And if there were no calculate tokens, you flip the card. And this was another thing that was revealed on stream. During the system phase, roll 1 attack die on a hit or crit, gain a calculate token, otherwise gain a jam token, and as an action you can transfer calculate or jam tokens around. So if you can fly relatively close to enemy ships and keep a tight wing close to you from your friendly ships, you actually, this really isn't the worst thing in the world, because if you end up with a jam token, you can just pass that off to somebody. If you end up with a calculate token and you can't make an attack, you give it to somebody else, and having it at range 0 to 3 is huge, because we've seen with network calculations that it can be a bit problematic if your opponent forces you into a situation you have to break up your vulture wings. So having this as just having a bit more range to use the effect is definitely nice. So it looks like Terex can be a pilot for the Z class. So the stats on this thing: 2 die primary, 2 agility, 5 hull, 2 shields. After placing forces, you choose any number of your equipped illicit upgrades and equip them to a friendly TIE FO or TIE SF. Each ship can only be assigned 1 illicit in this way. End of game, return all illicits to their original ships. Okay, so this is an interesting way to get illicits for First Order, so that's interesting. Quickly going back to the Z-Class action line, we have Focus, Red Target Lock, Red Coordinate, and a White Jam. Back to the ability, so I mean, maybe there's some illicits that are good for this. You know what? I'm just going to cut away here and start talking about this separately because I can't think of anything when I'm recording this. And we're back, so yeah, that's that. Inertial dampeners, contraband cybernetics. Actually, let's take a look at that right now. Inertial dampeners, probably not because that requires shields. Contraband cybernetics, maybe that as a quick, cheap way to be able to do hard maneuvers in a pinch. Deadman switch would actually be pretty decent. So, yeah, maybe some Deadman switches. We have to see how many things the shuttle can equip. So, Commander Malaris again. So when a friendly ship at range 0 to 2 performs a primary attack, if it has 1 or more blanks, it must gain a strain token to reroll 1 blank result if able. Okay, considering that most First Order ships have 3 agility, I honestly don't see the strain token as a downside. But, again, it really is dependent on blanks, but at the very least you get free rerolls, so there's something. This could probably go a bunch of different ways, so it seems decent enough. The cost is like always going to make a huge difference. Gideon Hask, here we go. Somebody from Battlefront 2. While you are a friendly small ship at range 0 to 2 performs a primary attack against a damaged defender, If the attacker rolled 2 or fewer attack dice, it may gain a strain token to roll an additional die. Okay, so having the ability to boost up your ships if you absolutely need to get a critical piece of damage through or something like that. And at a PS4, it's not too bad of an option. So, and considering most or pretty much every first order ship except for the Upsilon is small, or and then the Xi class is medium, honestly, it seems fairly decent. So that's definitely fun. And then we have the PS2 first order courier. So there's that. Automated target priority. Okay, so a new tech that you have to have PS3 or lower. While you perform an attack, you must choose a defender at the closest valid attack range. Okay, so that's going to be an interesting ruling. So when it says closest valid attack range and you have to choose a defender, does that mean that the closest ship that would be in arc, or the closest ship in general? So that's going to be an interesting ruling. After you perform an attack that missed, place a calculate token on this card. Before you engage, you may remove a calculate token to gain one. Okay, so this is just something that if you miss an attack, you get a bit of compensation, and then later you can gain the token in order to kind of help your action economy a little bit. So I actually really like that. So what else do we have here? Sensor buoy suite. First order medium or large ships, so the Xi class and the Upsilon. Before placing forces, place 2 sensor buoy remotes beyond range 2 of any edge. Okay, so a new remote. Before you engage, you may acquire a lock on a ship at range 0 to 1 of a friendly sensor buoy, ignoring range restrictions. Okay, so if I remember correctly, in Hot Shots and Aces, one of the pilots liked to interact with target locks. I don't remember which one. One of the pilots for First Order specifically. I'll throw it up on screen. But this seems like something that would pair amazingly with that. So a Xi class with whatever that pilot is, it's definitely going to be interesting, and I'll have to do some testing with that once I get my hands on a Xi class, or maybe I'll test it in Fly Casual. I don't know. So overall, actually, I'm going to quickly go ahead and shift over to the to the initial announcement article for Wave 7, and let's take a look at if everything has been revealed for the Xi class. Okay, so looking at the product spread here, so everything here we know is included, including that Deadeye shot card that we don't know what it does, and also we know the sensor buoy array, so that's, I think, 10 out of the 14 cards in the pack, so there are still 4 unknowns, but we'll just have to wait and see what the next one, what the other cards are going to be. So, yeah, I think I'm not too sure when these other 2 previews are going to come out. I may include them in this video just so that way I have my analysis of them before they release. So we'll just have to wait and see, and we'll see what happens, like I just said. So if there's nothing else to talk about, then the video will end here. If not, actually, it'll cut away right now. Okay, so if I'm still here, that means that there's nothing else to talk about. So again, hopefully you enjoyed me rambling on about this stuff. I know I can be a little incoherent at times, but that's just the way I talk, so you're going to have to forgive me on that one. But yeah, that will do it for this video. Peace out, y'all.